I broke up with Jack. Everyone was waiting for me to beg him to get back together. The next day, without hesitation, I packed up everything related to Jack and mailed it away. I heard Jack panicked. Chapter 1. The day Jack and I broke up. It was a rainy night. I didn't bring an umbrella. I called Jack, but he didn't answer. I ended up getting drenched like a drowned rat on my way home, only to receive a WeChat message from Jack. Turned out, he had gone to bring an umbrella to his childhood sweetheart. How ridiculous. Rainwater dripped down my cheeks and burst like little flowers on the floor, just like my shattered heart. I walked into the bedroom. On the nightstand was a framed photo of him and his childhood friend Ava. In the picture, Ava leaned against him, smiling like a blooming flower. I let out a self-mocking laugh and turned the photo face down. Ava had grown up with Jack. As long as she opened her mouth to make a request, Jack would say yes. And me? According to Jack's group of drinking buddies, I was nothing but an optional, disposable stand-in, someone to pass the time. In other people's eyes, I was a simp. I didn't bother to clean myself up. I quickly packed my luggage and called Jack. It was Ava who answered. Amanda. It's me. Jack got caught in the rain and is taking a shower right now. Her voice was sweet and syrupy, unbearably grating. Thank goodness Jack came just in time. Otherwise, I would have been the one soaked today. Oh, by the way, Amanda, did you get wet too? Her taunt couldn't have been more obvious. I couldn't be bothered to respond. When I heard the sound of a door opening on the other end of the line, I knew Jack was out of the shower. Calmly, I said, put Jack on the phone. Okay. Jack. It's Amanda. Once I was sure Jack had taken the phone. Before he could even speak, I said decisively, Jack, let's break up. Then I hung up directly and resolutely left that gilded cage. After moving back to my old place, I was too drained from the rain to clean anything. I collapsed on the bed, half asleep. The next morning, after I told her where I was, my best friend Robin came rushing over. Did you fry your brain or something? I heard from the group chat, you broke up with Jack? Heh. The news spread fast. How pathetic must I be? That in Robin's eyes, leaving Jack could only be explained by a fevered brain? Yeah, I must have been delirious. My whole body was weak and burning up, if that's not a fever. What is? Robin was caught off guard by my response. Seeing my pale face, she quickly reached out to touch my forehead, then exclaimed, Alma, you're burning up. Lie down. I'll find you some fever medicine. Looking at Robin panicking like that, I let out a weak laugh. It felt nice to be cared for. After taking the medicine, I lay helplessly on the sofa. My phone beside me kept lighting up, message after message coming in. When I finally picked it up, it was still vibrating. It was from a group chat of Jack's friends. I had shamelessly begged to be added in back then. Did you hear? Amanda broke up with Jack and ran off. Ha. It's not even the first time. She's probably just trying to force a proposal. Exactly. A girl from a small town, landing Jack was already the luckiest thing that could have happened to her. Let's start a betting pool. How long will she stay away this time? I skimmed through the messages. Some guessed a day, others an hour. Someone even joked that I was probably just squatting outside. And the moment Jack whistled, I'd crawl right back to him. I picked up my phone and sent one message. I bet a lifetime. Then I cleanly exited the group and locked the screen. Chapter 2. Because of the fever medicine, I dozed off on the sofa. When I woke up again, it was already dark outside. Seeing me awake, Robin rushed over and reached out to feel my forehead. Finally, no more fever. I made you some porridge. It's still warm on the stove. Hold on. I'll get you a bowl. The empty apartment no longer felt so cold and lonely with Robin around. I hugged my knees and sat on the sofa, giving a weak smile. It's always the crying baby who gets the milk. Too bad, I'm not the crying kind. Last winter, I was away on a business trip. In order to make it back in time for Jack's birthday, I couldn't get a plane ticket and ended up taking an old, slow green train. After 5 hours of traveling, I finally arrived at the restaurant only to see Ava smearing cake on Jack's face, even with cream all over his cheeks. Jack still smiled at her indulgently. I remembered clearly how I once tried to do the same. Jack had refused without hesitation, his gaze carrying a hint of reproach. Amanda, you know I have OCD. And his rowdy friends? They just laughed and watched the show like it was comedy gold. What are you thinking about? Hurry up and eat your porridge. Robin shoved the bowl into my hands, snapping me out of my memory. After drinking half the bowl, I felt warmth return to my body. Robin sat next to me, scrolling through her phone out of boredom. When she came across Ava's Instagram, she couldn't help but curse out loud. Ugh, shameless. Then she shoved the screen in my face. Look at this fake White Lotus. Ava had posted several photos from a bar. In the pictures, Ava was wearing pajamas and looked tipsy. Her cheeks flushed. Jack had his arm around her shoulders. The two of them looked just like a couple, intimate and cozy. The caption read, "The best kind of love is when you're always by my side, always spoiling me like a little girl." I knew full well they were together last night, maybe even got really intimate, but aside from a slight sourness in my chest, that gut-wrenching pain I'd imagined never came. In fact, I even finished the whole bowl of porridge. My body was fully warmed through, and sweat formed on my forehead from the heat. But Robin only got angrier. She had just scrolled down to see a comment from one of Jack's bros under Ava's Instagram post. "I'm so pissed off. Alma, that asshole Jack told everyone your little runaway stunt was just another scheme to pressure him into marriage. He swears you'll come crawling back again." After a long silence, I looked up to meet her gaze and smiled to calm her down. "Don't worry, I'm not delirious anymore." With that, I stood up, walked into the bedroom, and began packing everything I brought back yesterday, along with everything in the apartment. I had to admit, Jack didn't just fill up my memories. He was tied to so many of my belongings, too. In this one-sided pursuit that lasted 10 years, I had never once wavered. From the moment I fell for him in high school, I spent 3 years working hard just to get into the same university as him. I thought I'd just go on quietly loving him forever. I never expected that by our junior year, I would actually become his girlfriend. I cherished him with great care, loving him with everything I had, and willingly played the part of the gentle, considerate girlfriend. But all that affection was never reciprocated. All I ever got in return was his coldness and restraint. "Robin, I've finished packing. Can you call the postal service to come pick this up for me? I'm sending back everything related to Jack, every last thing." Didn't Jack say I was trying to force him into marriage? Well, sorry. He seriously overestimated himself. Chapter 3. On Monday, I wore a business suit with a pencil skirt, stepped into my heels, and put on light makeup before heading to the office. After graduation, I hadn't relied on Jack's connections. Instead, I went through job interviews on my own and got into the editing industry I liked. During the morning rush, the crowded elevator made me dizzy, probably a lingering effect from the fever. When I stepped into the office, my foot faltered. Just as I thought I was about to fall hard onto the floor, a firm force from behind caught me in an embrace. "Careful," a man's voice said, pleasant to the ear, yet oddly familiar. I quickly straightened up out of his arms, but just then, my heel slipped, and a sharp pain shot through my ankle. I inhaled instinctively. "Twisted your ankle?" The man frowned. I looked at his familiar, serious, and handsome face, pressed my lips together, and felt a sinking in my chest. Amy's, one of Jack's friends. Unlike Jack's other low-life buddies, Jack actually held a certain fear or respect for Amy's and didn't dare act out around him. Funny how things turn out. After I joined this company, Amy's left his foreign firm and joined ours as a department head by investing in the company. To his credit, he had a sharp eye. After he came on board, the company's revenue became quite impressive. I'm fine. Just thinking about those sleazy guys in Jack's friend group made me want to distance myself from anything remotely related to him. I stood up again and nearly stumbled, but Amy's reached out in time and steadied me by the shoulder. "Still thinking about Jack?" The implication was that I'd tripped because I was distracted and emotionally drained. I froze. Thinking about Jack? The hell I was. Was this guy planted by Jack to mess with me on purpose? I looked up and met his eyes. "Don't flatter yourself. Seriously. What a show." For all I knew, he was in that group chat, too. Maybe he even placed a bet on how soon I'd come crawling back. Then again, Amy's never really spoke in that group, even if he was the only decent guy in that whole chat. I didn't want anything to do with anyone connected to Jack. "Thanks for earlier," I said. Just as I was about to push open the office door, Amy's grabbed my wrist and carefully supported my arm. "I'll help you in." His move confused me. I frowned and subtly pulled my arm back from his grasp. lowering my voice. Amias. Jack and I broke up. In other words, I was no longer his buddy's girlfriend. There was no need for this. Not to mention, people were walking by everywhere. Amias was known as a golden bachelor. I didn't want to become the subject of office gossip. I know, took you long enough. As he spoke, Amias actually smiled, a teasing, almost amused smile. I didn't remember him being the type who smiled much. And what did he mean by took you long enough? Was he really Jack's friend? Or was he just screwing with me now? Chapter 4. At 10 a.m. When I walked into the meeting room, Amias happened to glance up and look straight at me. A giant question mark formed in my mind. Amias was the head of the marketing department. He had absolutely nothing to do with editorial. His presence here was strange. Then again, Amias was so ridiculously good-looking that every female editor nearby was blatantly staring at him. The editor-in-chief walked in and began assigning the week's interview tasks. I hurriedly started taking notes. All right. The editor-in-chief clapped his hands and stepped aside. Our editorial department will be fully cooperating with the marketing team. Amias stood up. His dark eyes swept over in my direction, intentionally or not, burning with such intensity that I didn't dare look up, afraid he'd catch something he could use against me. Thank you, Editor Zhu. Amias smiled faintly. The moment he did, the women around him gasped and swooned like fangirls. Amanda. He called my name with a playful tone. I looked up and met his gaze. His eyes were pitch black and dazzling. There's a dinner event tonight. Come with me, he added. Boom. My brain felt like it had been struck by lightning. I was even more disoriented. He had to be doing this on purpose, getting revenge on Jack's behalf. That evening at the dinner, I sat nervously beside Amias. The sounds of toasts and glasses clinking filled the room. I kept trying to guess Amias's motives. He was probably going to use this social setting to get me drunk as some form of retaliation for Jack. But to my surprise, whenever someone tried to toast me, Amias blocked it for me. Even when a man smelling of alcohol leaned toward me, Amias stepped protectively in front of me, making the guy back off with nothing more than his presence. By the end of the dinner, Amias had sealed the ad deal for the next quarter, hitting our quota early. And because of that, even I got to bask in the reflected glory. My bonus next month would be double. The more successful the dinner became, the more suspicious I grew. If this was some new form of psychological punishment. Amias was playing a deeper game than Jack ever did. After the dinner, I was about to head home when some coworkers from sales pulled me aside, telling me to take good care of Amias. After all, he was the star of the night. Left with no choice, I ordered a rideshare. I originally planned to drop Amias off first, but to my surprise, he insisted on sending me home instead, and even pulled me into the back seat to sit beside him, leaning against me with a touch of drunkenness. He was clearly tipsy, but I hadn't touched a drop. My mind was crystal clear. 1,000 doubts swirled in my head, and when we finally arrived outside my building, I couldn't hold back any longer. Amias, if you're trying to stand up for Jack, you can just come at me directly. No need to sweet talk me first. As soon as I finished speaking, I pushed open the car door. Just as one foot touched the ground, Amias pulled me back. This is for you, he said, shoving a paper bag into my hands. I looked down. Inside was a bottle of medicinal liniment for sprains. I stared at it in surprise, then looked back up at him. Don't wear heels anymore. You're not short, he said. Then he let go and closed his eyes again. I clenched the bag tightly in my hands and stepped out of the car in confusion. The next day, to avoid the morning elevator rush, I got to the office early. On my desk sat a brand new shoebox, alone and glaring. The label was from a high-end brand worth an entire month of my salary. I opened the box to find a pair of flat shoes, exactly my size. I didn't have to guess who sent them. Grabbing the box, I stormed into Amias's office. He happened to be there. Yes? He looked up, calm as ever. I slammed the shoebox onto his desk. President Amias, I don't accept gifts without merit. I was genuinely angry. If this is your way of messing with me, then at least set some boundaries. What was he playing at? Stringing me along like this? Honestly, Amias's tactics were way more dangerous than Jack's ever were. I turned to leave, but Amias was faster. He grabbed my arm, pushed down on my shoulder, and trapped me in his embrace. Amanda, I'm not that bored, he said. I turned my head away, and his lips brushed against my cheek. They were soft. My heart was racing like crazy. I didn't dare look at Amy's. I shoved him away and bolted. Chapter 5. Over the next month or so, I kept seeing more and more of Amy's. He always had some clever way of accidentally running into me at the office. Even during the Monday morning meetings, our editorial team had gotten used to his presence. All kinds of small gifts often appeared on my desk. I knew they were from Amy's, but every time I received one, I silently placed it into my drawer. I didn't storm into his office like I did last time. Amy's. What was he really up to? This weird, obsessive energy was practically driving me insane. One morning, while I was at work, my best friend Robin sent me another message on WeChat. Alma, yesterday one of Jack's buddies asked me when you're finally going back. They're all about to lose their bet. I almost laughed. So it had already been a month since I left Jack. So letting go wasn't as hard as I thought it'd be. Is that so? Then tell them I'm definitely winning this. A moment later, Robin sent me a giant exclamation mark. Now that's what I'm talking about. You made me proud. Jack's loser friends were all stunned. None of them expected you to last this long. Keep going. I'm rooting for you. I couldn't help but laugh. Why was it so hard for them to believe I could actually leave Jack? I stayed late working overtime, and by the time I looked up again, it was already dark outside. Rain poured down outside the windows. I stood at the office entrance, waiting for the rain to stop. Looks like I really needed to build the habit of carrying an umbrella. I couldn't afford to fall for the same thing a third time. The rain grew heavier. I shivered in the cold, rubbing my arms and waving frantically, but I couldn't get a car for the life of me. Just when I was about to increase the fare or call Robin, I saw, through the curtain of rain, Amy's walking toward me, holding an umbrella. He took step after steady step, graceful and calm, even as his polished leather shoes splashed through the puddles. I had the strangest feeling he was stepping directly on my heart. What was he doing here? Let me take you home. Amy's lifted the umbrella over my head and even tilted it slightly toward me, making sure I stayed drier than he did. But I'd had enough. I'd had enough of him circling me for the past month, intentionally or not. Even if this was all part of some twisted revenge plan, a month of build-up was plenty. I shoved his hand away hard. Amy's. What exactly do you want? If you're a man, just say it straight. Don't play this damn cat-and-mouse game with me. Amy's let out a helpless laugh, his smooth voice ringing softly above me. Amanda, have I not been obvious enough in chasing you? I was speechless. This time, I was the one completely stunned. Amy's. Had he lost his mind? He wanted to pursue me? Chapter 6. In just a short moment, my brain spun through about 18 different scenarios. Clearly, Amy's wasn't in a rush. Let me take you home first. He took off his coat and wrapped it around me, raised the umbrella so it mostly covered my head, and placed his arm around my shoulder. Ready to walk. No need. I tried to pull away, but clearly, struggling in front of Amy's was useless. Be good. As he spoke, Amy's held me tighter and walked with the umbrella into the rain. He kept me so close that I had no choice but to move in step with him. From the corner of my eye, I looked at his tense, handsome face. Because he had tilted most of the umbrella toward me, half of his body was soaked through. And Amy's didn't just drop me off downstairs. He followed me all the way into my apartment. Once inside, he gently nudged me toward the couch and then walked straight into the kitchen. Sit for a while. I'll make you some ginger tea. You've got ginger, right? Any brown sugar? I couldn't help but peek into the kitchen, curious. Peeling the ginger, cutting it up, boiling the water. His movements were smooth and practiced. Once upon a time, that person used to be me, but the one who enjoyed it never knew how to appreciate it. Come here, drink this, it'll warm you up. Amy's walked over with a ceramic bowl, carefully blowing on the tea. It was hard to believe that someone so cold and aloof could not only cook but also be this patient. His hair and half his shoulder were still drenched. I shook my head and refused without thinking. No need, I barely got wet. And I'm fine. He was the one who stood in the rain, not me. Besides, I didn't like the taste of ginger. It was spicy and pungent. Amy's noticed the rejection in my eyes and smiled faintly. He stirred the tea with the spoon and brought it toward my lips. Weren't you the one who said last time your head was killing you after that fever? Be good, drink up. I froze, recalling that I had mentioned it to Xiaobai from my team during my last fever. I hadn't expected Amia's to know about it, or remember. There was no arguing with Amia's tone. I frowned and choked down the tea, sip by spicy sip. By the time I finished the bowl, my body was warm, and a light sweat had broken out on my forehead. Give me your hand. Suddenly, Amia's reached for my hand and placed a piece of rock sugar in my palm. Bitter medicine works best. This will make your mouth a little less bitter. There was no hiding the affection in his gaze. My palm burned. That kind of gentle care, being cradled in someone's palm, was something I'd never experienced before. The sound of rain outside grew louder, stirring up a storm inside me. I thought for a moment, then decided to stop tiptoeing and just ask, Amias, why are you pursuing me? His eyes darkened, his lips pressed into a line, and it was a while before he finally replied, because I like you. His voice was deep, but firm. There was no room for doubt in his tone. I instinctively wanted to refuse. I'd have to be insane to get involved with my ex-boyfriend's friend. Before I could say a word, Amias stood up. You don't need to answer right away. Let's just say I've only just entered my trial period. Trial period? Who gave him permission to enter that? Seeing my obvious inner conflict, Amias reached out and gently ruffled my hair. His expression was soft. I'll head out now. Take a hot shower and get to bed early. See you tomorrow. Then, umbrella still dripping, he left my apartment. After showering, I lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. I opened Instagram and started scrolling aimlessly. I saw that Amias had posted just a few minutes ago. Walked her home. The photo was of the very umbrella he used earlier. Suddenly, a strange, indescribable emotion surged in my chest. I panicked, just a little. Chapter 7. Just as I was starting to panic and overthink, I saw that a few of Jack's loser buddies had already started commenting under Amias's Instagram post. So, who's the lucky girl you walked home? Damn, Amias, got some good news for us? Come on, show us a pic of our new sister-in-law. Nice. Nice. Congrats on finally getting tied down. Never thought we'd see the day someone could actually win over our Amias. Then Jack commented too. That's pretty thoughtful of you. When are you bringing her out to meet everyone? I was speechless. Meet? My ass. Yeah, I hadn't rushed to block Jack after the breakup. After all, knowing Jack, breaking up with me was probably no more serious than changing his socks. No need for me to act like I was the center of the universe. Amias didn't reply to the others, but he did respond to Jack first. That won't be necessary. I had to admit, that one line brought me some joy, but the entire situation still felt so bizarre and chaotic that I angrily locked my phone and tossed it aside. Was this mess never going to end? The next day, just as I arrived at work, I got a call from Jack. Staring at that all-too-familiar number, I felt nothing but a sense of vague detachment. I declined the call without hesitation. Moments later, it rang again. He kept calling. I kept rejecting. After several rounds, I finally answered, determined to put an end to the endless pestering. Amanda, how long are you planning to play this game? The moment I picked up, Jack's voice blasted through, full of irritation and accusation. Play? I'd had enough of that word. I replied. For the rest of my life. There was a pause. Then, for the first time, Jack softened his tone and offered an explanation. Ava is just someone I grew up with. I've always seen her like a little sister, you know that. You used to be so understanding. Amanda, understanding? How poor must my judgment have been back then to be so understanding for a decade? I let out a laugh. Jack, turns out you're more delusional than I thought. Late affection is cheaper than weeds. We're already over. Don't make me block you. A proper ex should be like the dead, non-existent. Before he could respond, I hung up decisively. Knowing Jack, he was probably seething after that. But that wasn't my problem. His precious childhood sweetheart could comfort him. Back at my desk, just as I was about to sort some files, my phone rang again. It was Robin. Given her personality, she'd only call during work hours if it was something urgent. As soon as I picked up, she launched into gossip mode. Did you see? My dream man, Amias, apparently has a girlfriend now. He walked her home in the rain last night. I'm so jealous. Ugh. So sweet I could cry. I went silent. Amy's is Robin's dream guy? Right. That rang a bell. After she found out I was dating Jack. Robin had always disapproved of his trashy circle of friends, except for Amy's. She used to praise him endlessly. And apparently he was quite the campus heartthrob back in the day. Then again, maybe it was just because of his face. After a whole stream of Amy's worship, I finally spoke up. Hesitantly, Robin, that girl he's pursuing is me. What? Her scream through the phone was so loud it practically gave me a migraine. Amanda, how could you do this to me? Are we even friends? Robin launched into a dramatic tirade, and I barely managed to escape by pretending I was swamped with work and hanging up. I'd cut off her gossip storm, but felt a bit helpless. I let out a sigh, turned around, and there he was. Amy's, standing right behind me, holding a cup of coffee, eyes twinkling with amusement. Crap. I had no idea how much of that he'd overheard. Amy's curled his lips into a sly smile, just a bit wicked. Didn't expect to have fan support from your inner circle. What? After a pause, Amy's added casually. I'll keep working hard. I was speechless. Chapter 8. I had to admit Amy's was a man of his word. He really was putting in the effort to pursue me. He was amazing at taking care of people, at least. He was amazing at taking care of me. Every morning, there would be a steaming hot breakfast waiting on my desk. In the afternoons, a hand-brewed cup of coffee crafted just for me. At night, no matter how late I worked, Amy's would always be there to drive me home. On weekends, he'd come up with every excuse under the sun to ask me out and make me laugh. My life was flooded with his presence, relentless and all-encompassing. And yet, Amy's never once said anything about making me his girlfriend. Boiling a frog in warm water, that was exactly what this was. Every day, I was slowly being cooked alive. Restless and flustered. Sure enough, this morning was no different. On my desk sat a piping hot bowl of pork congee with century egg, paired with perfectly cooked side dishes and a fried egg, everything I loved. Underneath it all was a small folded note. Day 28 of the trial period. I folded the note and added it to the others, slotting it into the back of my drawer, tucked into a book. 28 notes in total, already a small stack. Amy's heart was deep like the sea. I had no way of reading his true thoughts. But I knew one thing, he was Jack's friend. He was off limits. Amanda, stop eating, we've got a last-minute interview. The car's waiting outside. The editor-in-chief hurried over and tapped on my desk. Got it. I'm on it. I quickly packed up the breakfast, slung my bag over my shoulder, and headed out. Amy's was waiting by the door. When he saw me, he waved slightly. Come on. I walked over, puzzled. You're coming with me for the interview? Amy's opened the car door. The person we're interviewing happens to be a friend of mine, Leo. I didn't need to ask. He definitely planned this. With Amy's help, the interview that I had originally been nervous about went incredibly smoothly. Both sides were pleased. As we left, Leo shook my hand warmly. Miss Amanda, come visit my studio sometime, bring Amy's with you. I smiled and nodded. Sure, I'd love to. Then, turning to Amy's, he gently punched him in the shoulder and said, You'd better win her over soon. I'm waiting for the wedding banquet. Amy's rubbed his shoulder, looked at me with a deep, unreadable gaze, and replied with a grin, Definitely. My face flushed. I quickly lowered my head. Once we got in the car, I kept my eyes down, flipping through my notes, thinking I had enough time to return to the office and draft a rough outline. When I looked up, I realized we weren't heading back to the company. Where are we going? I blurted out. Taking you on a date, Amy's said with a smile. Huh? Who agreed to that? I helped you wrap the interview up early. One little date isn't too much to ask, right? His tone was so logical, so calm. I had no room to argue. What I didn't expect was that Amy's brought me to Jiao University, my alma mater. The campus was quiet. We strolled along the track field. Seeing the place where my youth had been recorded brought on a wave of nostalgia. Time really did flow like water. I smiled without realizing it and turned to say something to Amy's, only to find him holding up his phone, snapping a picture of me. I immediately reached over and grabbed the phone from his hand. In the photo, the girl wore a short-sleeved suit jacket and a matching skirt. Her waist was slender, her skin fair. There was something ethereal about her. Honestly, I was impressed with his photography skills. Amy's. I'm keeping this one. I tilted my head, just about to forward the photo to myself and delete it, when I noticed how close Amy's was standing to me. So close that his clean scent was wrapped all around me. Apparently, I'd leaned in too far without realizing, feeling the heat rise to my cheeks. I panicked. Forget the photo. I backed away and shoved the phone back at him like it was on fire. By the way, which school did you graduate from? Robin had always made it sound like he was some genius campus heartthrob. Amy's hadn't expected the question. He answered calmly. Jack and I went to the same university. I froze for a second. Then he added, actually, the first time I saw you was right here on this track. Chapter 9. I was completely stunned. Back then, my eyes had only ever seen Jack. Everyone else was just background noise. That day, Amy's said, I was playing basketball on the field. It was chilly, and then it suddenly started to rain. You were dressed lightly, holding a breakfast in your hands. But even as the rain poured, you didn't leave. You looked like you were waiting for someone. Later, when I went to take cover from the rain, I accidentally hit you with a basketball. You clutched the breakfast and started crying. I panicked and wanted to take you to the infirmary. But instead, you asked me if I'd had breakfast and gave it to me. Amy's pressed his lips together and continued. I later found out you were waiting for Jack. And after that, when I finally wanted to sincerely pursue a girl, she'd already become my buddy's girlfriend. Yes, I had been waiting for Jack that day. He had stomach issues and often skipped breakfast, so I'd gotten into the habit of bringing it to him. The night before, he'd stayed up all night gaming. I'd called him dozens of times in the morning, but his phone was off. I had no choice but to wait along the path he always took. He didn't reply until that evening when he finally woke up. I overslept. Not even a word of apology. And now, it hit me, Amy's might have liked me for a long time. Amy's smiled softly and gently patted my head before continuing. I read everything you wrote. Every article. I even went to your club events. But you never noticed me. I'd never imagined that while I was wrapped up in loving Jack during those green, youthful years, someone else had been silently watching over me. Bathed in sunlight, Amy's eyes were deep and clear, his features sharp, lips slightly pink. His gaze was open, focused, and unshakably calm. Looking at him, one thought floated to the top of my mind. I'm doomed. Then, Amy's slowly leaned in. I instinctively closed my eyes in a panic, but instead of kissing me, he simply pulled me gently into a warm embrace. Thank you, Amanda. I froze. Then he said, slowly and clearly, thank you for existing, and even more, thank you for finally seeing clearly, so that I have a real chance to pursue you out in the open. On the way back, I posted on Instagram. The photo was of a sunlit corner of campus. The caption read, the sun is just right. The breeze just soft enough. Everything arrived at the perfect time. A few minutes later, Robin messaged me. Only one sentence. You two are unbearably sweet. I opened Amy's Instagram. It was a picture of my back. The caption? I'm waiting for you to turn around. My nose stung. I almost cried. Turns out, fate really had left me a window, and his name was Amy's. Chapter 10. Amy's had to head back to the office for an emergency, but even in a rush, he insisted on dropping me off at home first. I waved goodbye, slinging my bag over my shoulder, walking happily toward my building. But just as I stepped out of the elevator, someone grabbed my arm roughly. The next moment, I was slammed against the cold wall. It was Jack. After not seeing him for so long, he looked a little haggard. The look in his eyes was full of complex emotions I no longer cared enough to read. Amanda, what's going on between you and Amy's? What? I quickly calmed myself and said coldly, Jack, shouldn't you be busy babysitting your precious childhood sweetheart? Why show up here just to ruin my mood? Since when did he care what I did? My words pushed Jack over the edge. He pulled out his phone, opened Amy's Instagram, and pointed to the photo of my back. Through gritted teeth, he said, Amanda, do you really think I wouldn't recognize you? Why were you at school with Amy's? Is he chasing you? Are you two together now? Amanda, this time, you've gone too far. Gone too far? Ha. Looking at his furious face, I felt absolutely nothing. Only one sentence echoed in my head. And what the hell does it have to do with you? Jack, did you hit your head or something? We broke up. Who I go to campus with is none of your damn business. His face twisted at my words. I used that moment to shove him away and walked past him without hesitation. Amanda! He shouted my name. It echoed through the empty stairwell. Are you with Amias just to get back at me? PFT. I sneered inside, as if I'd waste myself trying to get revenge on a scumbag like him. Jack, don't flatter yourself. You're not worth it. Without even turning back, I walked off. Behind me, Jack kicked the wall in rage, but I didn't look back. Not even once. Chapter 11. The next day was the weekend. I slept soundly through the night, only to wake up to a flurry of WeChat messages from Robin. She'd sent several long strings of ha 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 followed by a giant laughing emoji. Alma. Looks like the fake innocent White Lotus finally lost her act. Heard Jack got totally wasted last night, and no matter how hard Ava tried to calm him down, it didn't work. In front of everyone, he spent the whole night calling your name. Ava was fuming. Her face turned green. Serves that dog of a scumbag right. Regretting it now. Huh? Too late. Message after message. Robin was practically gloating with satisfaction. As for me, I felt surprisingly calm. Whatever happened to Jack had nothing to do with me anymore. Day 45 of the trial period. Every day, I saw a new note from Amias, and every day, I felt more and more like a frog slowly boiling in warm water, with no escape. But strangely enough, I didn't want to escape. In fact, I was starting to enjoy the warmth of this pot he placed me in. Don't forget your umbrella. I've got a work dinner tonight. That morning, Amias sent me a message. It made my heart feel warm. Got it, I replied. Sure enough, it rained hard after work. Beside me, Xiao Bai, now 7 months pregnant, held her belly and groaned. Oh no, I forgot to bring an umbrella. I've got one. You can use it. Without hesitation, I handed her my umbrella. A while passed, and the rain grew even heavier. Lightning cracked across the sky, and thunder rumbled close behind. Rainy days always seemed to pick a fight with me. Just as I was about to call a ride, I saw someone walking toward me through the shadows, holding an umbrella. A man, moving against the glow of the street lamps. My heart leapt in relief. Amias. But the moment I saw his face clearly, my smile froze. It was Jack. Worse still, Jack had seen it and heard me call out that name. He stepped closer and raised the umbrella over my head. Alma, you forgot your umbrella. Let me take you home. Then he paused and added, from now on, every time it rains, I'll come pick you up. I didn't know how to balance things between you and Ava before. She's just like a sister to me. But you're the most important person in my life. I've already cleared things up with her. I really can't live without you. I've gotten so used to having you by my side. I saw the glint of tears in his eyes, and honestly, I believed him. I believed every word he said. But that didn't mean I wanted any of it. I took a small step back and said calmly, no need. I'm calling a ride. Let me take you. Jack immediately stepped in front of me, blocking my way. Jack, calm down. My face turned cold. You can't not love me. Jack's voice suddenly rose. Then, with a sharp motion, he flung the umbrella aside and grabbed my arm, pulling me toward him. Let go. Just as I raised my hand, ready to slap him across the face and knock some sense into him, Amias suddenly burst through the downpour like lightning. One punch landed square on Jack's jaw, and he yanked me into his arms. Jack staggered, nearly falling, only catching himself after a few steps. He wiped the blood from his lip and spat. Amias. Amanda is mine. Amias sneered. You already lost her. Then, he hit Jack again, hard. Jack's face darkened. He grabbed the nearby railing to steady himself. This was still our company building, and Amias was a shareholder. A scene like this couldn't be good for anyone. I quickly reached out and held Amias's hand. Let's go home. I want your ginger tea. Amias smiled, stepped forward, and wrapped his arm around my shoulders. All right. As for Jack, we didn't spare him even a glance. Back home, I rushed into the bathroom and grabbed a clean towel to dry Amy's hair. He was calm and obedient like a golden retriever, completely different from the fierce man who had just thrown punches minutes ago. "Didn't you have work tonight? How come you came to pick me up?" Amy's pulled the towel off his head and draped it gently over mine, rubbing my hair with light, careful motions. "The rain was too heavy. I got worried. I called you several times and you didn't pick up, so I slipped away early to find you." So this man, this shareholder, had ditched his business dinner just to make sure I was okay? He really didn't treat his career seriously at all. Huh? Then again, I had nearly forgotten Amy's had been thriving at his foreign firm. But after I joined this company, he'd bought in and taken a position here. Thinking about it now, he must have come here for me. My heart swelled with warmth. I tilted my head up and looked into his eyes. They were dark and luminous, reflecting nothing but me. It felt perfect. Chapter 12. The rain outside kept pouring down harder and harder. Amy's was in the kitchen, making ginger tea for me. This time, the smell didn't seem spicy or pungent at all. Instead, it felt sweet and comforting. So this is what it's like to be cherished by someone, like soaking in honey every day. And this time, without any coaxing from Amy's, I obediently drank the entire bowl of ginger tea. Right after I finished, Amy's popped a sugar cube into my mouth. "Sweet?" he asked. I nodded vigorously, smiling even sweeter than before. The rain grew even heavier. Just as Amy's was about to brave the storm and head out, I hesitated for a long while before finally speaking. Face flushed. "The rain's too heavy. Why you should stay over tonight." Amy's froze for a second. Then his face turned red. He stared at me for a long moment before nodding firmly. "Okay, Amanda." His voice had turned hoarse. "What?" My throat was dry too. "Was the ginger tea good?" he asked out of nowhere. "It was really good." I blinked, a bit confused, but nodded sincerely. "Let me try some then." The next moment, Amy's leaned in and kissed me. His lips locked onto mine, stealing my breath away like a devil sucking away my soul. This wasn't trying the ginger tea. This devil of a man clearly came to devour me whole. The next morning, by the time I came out of the bathroom, washed and dressed, breakfast was already neatly arranged on the table, everything I loved. Amy's sat at the table, smiling like a smug little brat. "Come eat." He waved me over. I walked to the table, only to find a folded note under the porridge bowl. I pulled it out. On it was written, "Alma, have I passed the trial period?" I looked up and met Amy's expectant gaze, and nodded. The smile on his face deepened, stretching wider. He handed me another note. "Here, for today." I opened it. Day 1 of official relationship status. I laughed out loud. Amy's leaned in and kissed me. "Good morning, girlfriend." "Good morning, boyfriend." I kissed him back with a smile. That night, I was curled up on the sofa watching TV when my phone started buzzing nonstop with transfer notifications. Frowning, I checked my phone. Turns out Jack's old crew of scummy bros had been sending me money. One after another. Stunned, I opened Amy's Instagram. There it was. "A bet is a bet. Time to pay back what you owe my wife. Don't make me come collect." Underneath were all those guys who had once bet on me in the group chat. I glanced through the comments. Ava had also left one, laced with fake sweetness. "Best wishes to Ami and someone. May you grow old together and stay forever united." Amy's replied with just one line. "Don't call me that. We're not that close." I laughed. So this was what real security felt like.